everyone. Welcome to the third annual JQT Hanukkah Hotties. My name is Carmel Tanaka. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the founder and executive director of JQT Vancouver, a volunteer-run Jewish queer and trans nonprofit dedicated to queering Jewish space and Jewifying queer space in Vancouver, BC, on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. For Hanukkah this year, we are being generously supported by Creating Accessible Neighborhoods, an organization that advocates for and educates about disabled people with intersecting identities. You can learn more about this fantastic organization doing amazing work at canbc.org. Our community partner this year is LGBTQ at the J, the heart of Toronto's LGBTQ plus Jewish community, providing queer Jews opportunities to gather, celebrate, and thrive. For each candle of the holiday, we have a Hanukkah Hottie joining us to light their hanukkiah, or perhaps share another tradition and chit-chat about the wonderful things they do in life for the duration of the candle's burning. For our fifth candle of Hanukkah Hotties, we are joined by Antonia Lassar, an LA-based, bisexual, chronically ill, Jewish comedian, actor, writer, stone cold hot person. Her work focuses on using comedy as a tool for social change and also tummy aches. Her muse is gastrointestinal distress. Antonia's one-woman show, Post-Traumatic Super Delightful, was featured by Mary Claire for its work on sexual violence prevention. You can catch her being a super big deal on TikTok. Tuning in from Los Angeles, please welcome Antonia. Hello.
Hi, Carmel. Thank you so much for having me. Yay.
Welcome. I'm so happy that you were able to participate and join in as one of our Hanukkah Hotties and to kick
Me
off
too.
this lovely, lovely coming together. Why don't we light our hanukkiah?
Perfect. And before we do that, I would just like to introduce the other participant in tonight's candle lighting, which is Moisha, the rabbi dog.
So cute. Hello.
He's so sleepy. I just woke him up from a nap. He's like,
and you just recently adopted him too.
Just 2 weeks ago.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. He's a freaking mensch.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's a lovely present for Hanukkah, and I'm sure you'll be cozying up by the fire shortly. So I'm going to do some low technology scene change.
Ooh,
I know, it's
great
so hot.
production.
Brilliant. And I have my match here. Ooh, look at your hanukkiah. Beautiful.
My hanukkiah. Just talking to you right now is reminding me that it's a hanukkiah, not a menorah. Right.
For those who don't know what the difference is between a menorah and hanukkiah, do you want to explain?
I think it's that a menorah only has 7 candle slots, whereas a hanukkiah has 9. And I don't know, a menorah is like an all year round accessory, and a hanukkiah is just Hanukkah based. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's super accurate. But you know what the funniest thing is? I only light a hanukkiah. I've never lit a menorah.
Yeah, right. Who has actually lit a menorah?
No, I mean, not in my family growing up. But
yeah, and
perhaps some
it's
others.
like when I don't know when you would light a menorah.
Perhaps at Shabbat. You know, when you're lighting the 2 candles normally, and then you light for every child, you know, to keep them safe, blah, 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 blah. Perhaps there's something
blah,
there.
blah, blah, keep them safe, blah, blah.
But you know what? I'm going to invite people who are tuning in to write in the comments, when do you light your 7 branched menorah as opposed to just your hanukkiah? But yeah, let's do this. I'm ready to light.
Perfect. And my family tradition is to be unprepared. So, so this is my candle, and it will be both the shamash and all 5 candles. So,
I mean, that's a really big shamash. I approve. That's solid.
you know,
Okay.
we're queering Jewish spaces.
We certainly are. Is that a scented candle, by the way?
It is I got this as a gift, and it's so freaking fancy. It's a peony blush suede,
That is such a bougie candle.
right? It smells amazing. I think it was a lot of money. Lucky
That
me.
friend loves you. All right,
I
let's
know.
do this. Woo!
Okay.
And then there was light. Oh, this happened before. Clearly, I have no idea how to light a candle. Yeah. Oh,
Here we go.
yeah,
Baruch
I'm ready.
atah Adonai Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah. Baruch atah Adonai Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam haolam she'asa nisim la'avoteinu bayamim hahem b'zman hazeh.
Oh,
Amen.
oh, it's so close.
Oh,
This has
man,
not been easy to light.
you have tricky candles.
There we go, finally.
I love when it takes so long that the shamash is like 2 inches shorter than all the other candles.
Right? Oh, is that gonna work? Hold on. So much light. We're nearly
Oh,
getting there.
it's so much light. It's like just glowing on your screen. I want to put my hanukkiah somewhere. Aha, where we can
You were
see.
telling me a really interesting story about that hanukkiah. Do you want to share that again? Because we didn't get that
Yes.
recorded.
Oh my God. It's so juicy. So, this hanukkiah is belonged to my dad growing up, and he recently gave it to me. And it's just been kind of sitting gathering dust because the hanukkiah that my family uses is the God, it's like I always say menorah. I'm just gonna say menorah, even though I know it's not accurate, but it feels more truthful to my family. So the menorah that we normally use belonged to my dad's friend Daniel, who fell off a cliff and died.
Boy.
Poor, poor Daniel. Somewhere, I think in the Pacific Northwest, he was hiking on a mountain, got up to pee while they were camping at night, and fell off a cliff and died. And it's so horrific, but I think it's kind of amazing that his legacy has been passed on to this like very cool fact that the children of his best friend now are obsessed with these like gory details. We didn't even exist when he fell off the cliff, and now here we are like reveling in the tragedy.
I mean, there's such an obsession with, crime stories these days that I mean, it's totally fitting. But moral of the story is don't take a piss at night when you don't see where you're going.
That's right. Hold it. Though, as someone with an overactive bladder, this could be me.
Or take a menorah with you.
Take a
Let
menorah
there
with
be
you. That's the
Wonderful.
moral of Hanukkah. Stay safe out there. It's funny actually hearing you say that there's such an obsession with true crime, because it's like, what are the Jewish holidays other than kind of an obsession with the true crime against the Jews.
Right? They tried to kill us. They didn't succeed. So let's eat.
Yeah. It's basically like watching a murder documentary and eating pizza. It's a similar vibe.
Oh, wow. You know, I think that's a wonderful angle to see just in general, like the trauma of our community. It's just like it's one true crime documentary.
Yes.
Oy, 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 oy. But I love the fact that we're laughing at that. Um, I don't think I had a chance to tell you when we were chit-chatting. This is our first time meeting for those who don't know. But I first became a fan of yours online, like a lot of people I'm sure are. I saw your bit on reform decor in the reform synagogues, stained glass. Da, 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 da. Okay, people have got to see this because it is absolutely bonkers, hilarious. I was peeing, literally peeing in my pants. I was laughing so hard. You got to tell me the backstory. Like, did you grow up in reform? Like, how did you get this?
Oh my God. I feel like that writing that video was like the sketch that I have been preparing for my entire life. I grew up and right, you explained it. The sketch is just like the interior designer of all Reform synagogues explaining her work. And yeah, I grew up Reform and I went to a synagogue that looks exactly like all of the synagogues that are pictured in the video. Um, and I think it's so silly. And actually, so I grew up Reform and and just hated every single second of it. Was just miserable, felt like I didn't know why we were doing this. I felt like we were doing it for show. Like I didn't know I was going to Hebrew school. It all felt like total BS. And then later in life, after college, I like finally I met some people who were like, weird kooky Kabbalists in Chabad, and they were really nice and welcoming and helped me sort of like fall in love with Judaism again. And so when I go to shul, I sort of tend to alternate between like Reform synagogues and Chabad synagogues, and I have communities in both. And so it wasn't until going to other denominations like Chabad and Orthodox that I started realizing that the Reform synagogues were that iconically particular. And so that really tickled me.
Yeah, like for instance, they do not share the same interior designer.
No, I mean, Chabad, like their interior design is like everyone needs a folding table with a white tablecloth over it. And like if we're feeling fancy, we'll put a Kleenex box on every table. Like,
So so tell me though, like I I mean, like as a queer person, being accepted and included in various different communities is super interesting, and it varies, and Chabad varies from place to place, from rabbi to rabbi. I'm just curious, what has been your experience of being queer in the Reform movement, and how that may differ in the Chabad movement?
it's a really good question because I think about that all the time. Um, so so I'm bisexual and I'm married to a man and I'm cis and I look really cis. So so most people when they meet me don't immediately think that I'm queer. And I mean, listen, my queerness in the reform movement like literally could not have been less interesting. Like everyone was queer. It was totally chill. It wasn't even a thing to think about. In Chabad, I was sort of immediately aware of it as soon as I walked into the shul the first time. But my particular calling as a queer person is that I feel like I'm perfectly positioned to be people's starter queer. Because for people who don't have a lot of queer friends, I am like the ideal access point. You meet me, you don't think I'm queer, we get to be friends. I introduce you to my husband. They're like, oh, this is a safe space for me, someone who's not okay with queer people. And then I tell you I'm bisexual, and then it's like, you know, we open their minds. So yeah. So
Well, you're the gateway drug
I'm the
to
gate.
the queer world.
I really am. I mean, I truly have thought about this a lot, that I think my calling is to be the gateway drug to queerness. And I try and make friends with a lot of people who are conservative. And so I felt very comfortable in this Chabad space because I'm really, really pushy. And so I don't hide it either. I in situations where I feel like it's appropriate, I really demand that I'm accepted. And I am like lucky enough to not be dealing with the trauma that would make the past trauma or current trauma that would make that like unsafe for me. It's a really safe thing for me to do, to demand respect and acceptance as a queer person. And I say that because this does not apply to every queer person, and I think I'm uniquely positioned where this is okay for me to do. And yeah, so I just sort of demand it. I declare it like pretty much immediately. And I also kind of will demand friendship sometimes and say, like, listen, I'm cool, you're cool, let's be friends. And I have like some of my absolute best friends in the entire world are Hasidim. Actually, wait, oh my God, wait. Hold on, I'm gonna go off camera. I'll be right back. This is a challah cookbook for kids that literally just came out, written by Rachi Pinson, who's the Rebbitzin of a Chabad in New York, the Iyun Center, and she's like one of my best friends on earth. And I'm even featured in it. It'll take me too long, but it's an amazing, amazing challah cookbook, and it literally just came out. It's like perfect for kids. It's so freaking beautiful, and it's so cool, and I'm in it.
That is wonderful. So you're queering a very Hasidic Chabad space in that book.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And I make sure everybody knows too, you know? I'm
Mazel
loud
tov.
about it.
Thank you so much for doing that good work. I know it can be really hard, but it sounds like you have figured out the magic formula to make that work for you. So
yeah, for me
very,
in
very
particular.
Cool.
And I don't want to push that process on anybody else. For me in particular, it works for me.
And something else that I absolutely loved checking out. I mean, I went down a rabbit hole, but a very good one of watching all of your TikToks. And I love talking about Jewish gut, in particular, the bowel problems that we all have from our anxiety as Jews. And I would love to get into it. I love the fact that you talk about it openly, because at the end of the day, this is ultimately what we as people deal with on the daily, and as Jewish people, especially the Ashkenazim.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just daily. Sometimes it's multiple times a day.
That it is in all different forms. It's Carmel, I'm just obsessed with talking about this. My like very personal history is I was in gastrointestinal distress for my absolute entire life. And I just thought it was normal. And then I know. And then 2 years ago, it somehow it flared up into a totally life-altering, disabling condition, and I had to go on medical leave for 2 years, and I was completely disabled. And that really, I mean, that brought me into the disability justice world, and it was totally life-changing. And now, thank God, I'm like back to being able to work, and I'm on the road to healing. But I can't stop thinking about gastrointestinal illness. And it's not just Jews. I mean, Ashkenazi Jews definitely are predisposed to it for some reason. But every
I mean,
time
there's
I make a
theories
video,
as to why.
right?
Some
Is it?
of which I've heard everything from, the effects of the Holocaust and it's the trauma of our people to the inbreeding of our people, to a whole bunch of other things. And I mean, the predisposition is, I'm going to do a PSA announcement for young Ashkenazim and also the Black community, surprisingly, people in their 30s. This is the time to go get a colonoscopy and to get checked because sometimes it's too late. And especially if it is in your family, this is colon cancer, and we're talking about gut issues here. This is really, really important because some of us are predisposed and don't end up going to screen ourselves in time. So if you're in your 30s, go see a doctor.
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, we need that PSA. I mean, I vividly remember this conversation I had with another, I'm Ashkenazi, and another Ashkenazi Jewish friend. And I remember we had this discussion that was like, I think the thing is that as an Ashkenazi, you just have a stomach ache. Like, that's the thing. It's like you're always sick, but you're never ill. And we were like joking about this and laughing about it. And I was like, yeah, that's the thing. It's just my body always hurts, like all the time. And he was like, yeah, that's like our thing. And I mean, I was putting up with so much like medical discomfort that I really, really, truly did not need, because it was so normalized in my Jewish community to be kind of sick all the time. And yeah, I really recommend that you go to a doctor and get checked, both for colon cancer screening and push for autoimmune screenings as well. It's a lot of that in our community. So in all communities these days, actually.
IBS is totally real. I haven't been formally diagnosed with it, but there was a time when I would need to know on my route to school on the bus, so this is to going to university from my house, where the public washrooms were within a very close distance to the bus stops, because sometimes nature called and nature didn't give you enough time to actually make it. And I have been caught in so many situations where I'm nowhere near a park that has a toilet. I've knocked on so many random people's doors
Oh my
begging,
God. Yep.
and it's very real. It's very humiliating. It's extremely embarrassing, but there's not much that you can. I left $5 cash one time and on some, I was felt so bad. And then, there's a rule in Canada. I don't know if you're aware of this, but they can deny you access to use their washroom. That is
Really?
not like businesses. This is not the
Okay.
case in the US. The US, I believe
Yeah.
they can't decline you this one right
Yeah.
to a toilet.
It makes me think, I mean, I thought when you become disabled, you start realizing so much more about the world. And like, I didn't realize how much more Jewish community spaces could be doing for all different kinds of disabilities, including something like a gastrointestinal chronic illness. Like, if synagogues could somehow provide accessible toilets for people on the street, I know it might be a hard thing to figure out logistically, but that could be an option. Or more bathrooms, or bathrooms with, I know this sounds so silly, but bathrooms with wet wipes or bidets, or um, being people who distribute extra toilet paper to their community. I know this all sounds like so kind of goofy, but these are like serious
No.
access needs for a lot of people. Um, and even stuff like it's just these little things that like help people feel like they have more dignity, like in doing better sound insulation in bathrooms. A lot of people are just so scared to go, if they can hear other people. Having more single stall bathrooms than big communal restroom. Yeah, there's so many things that make places feel more accessible for all kinds of disabilities. And because this is my particular disability, I just think about that a lot.
Really feel this. I do. And it's actually bringing back a lot of not so great memories of, being caught with not an extra pair of underwear and whatnot. And then that really affects your ability to stay because you don't want to, you got to run. It makes you
Yeah.
asocial. It really does affect your ability to be engaged in whatever event that you're trying to get to, or class, as it happens to be with me.
Oh my God,
Class as in
Carmel,
school.
I, in the last 2 years, have shit myself in public
Yeah.
over 15 times. I have thrown away so much underwear in public restrooms, and it is harrowing. It is
Yeah.
so upsetting. And yeah, all of these little things really just add up to not feeling like you can participate in life.
Hmm.
And yeah, and anything you can add to just ease that burden. My God, if I saw a little pile of like fresh new underwear, I would be blown away with a bathroom.
Yo, you're making me cry. Literally, like having wet wipes, having something, yeah, would have made a huge difference. I'm very
Right.
thankful that I'm doing quite a bit better. A lot of what my issues were connected to ended up being endometriosis and adenomyosis related.
Yeah.
And I'm actually celebrating my 1 year anniversary of a hysterectomy, partial. Yeah,
Mazel tov. Wow, that's
this is a
huge.
whole other conversation about how the patriarchy of of our medical system just made it sound like the pain was all in my head. But the truth was, there was much more problems. Like there was disease, and my uterus was, yeah, very problematic. And I do know that there's a correlation between your menstrual cycle and, diarrhea and your bowel movements. And so imagine if you're bleeding like me every day of the year and are anemic, then you're having IBS every day of the year. So since having my hysterectomy, which was a big decision, but one that I have zero regrets, I haven't been completely, I mean, there's still the Ashkenazi part of being me, which I think the stress and the anxiety of being me also contributes, but now I don't have what I had for many years. I mean, almost 10 years.
That is so huge. I mean, first of all, just congratulations for finding doctors who believed you and were willing to give you the tests to actually figure out what was going on.
Willing to actually do the surgery. I mean, that was the problem, is I was begging for a hysterectomy and no one wanted to give it to me because I was so young. I wanted my
Oh my
quality
God.
of life back.
You deserve that. And also, I mean, thank you for just saying that here now. I think that like we really don't talk about the gory details of these things going wrong with our bodies, and then you don't know if you're normal or not. But like bleeding every day, having diarrhea every day is not normal. For me, it was the opposite. I was pooping once a week and it was excruciating hard lumps. And I would end every single night so bloated that I couldn't stand up straight. And that went on for literally as long as I can remember. That was my whole life. And again, I thought this was normal. And I developed overactive bladder because of the constipation. So I pee every 25 minutes. All of these things. And I developed a little urinary incontinence. So my underwear is always a little wet. All of these things are things that I would never tell anyone. Yep. And because I didn't tell anyone, all of these comorbidities developed and developed and developed. And I developed crazy acid reflux because of all of this constipation, because nothing could move through. And I mean, eventually it spiraled into I lost my ability to eat solid food for 2 years and got so malnourished that I was like, almost dying and lost my gallbladder. And this was all because I didn't speak openly about like my bowel habits and all of these things I was so ashamed of.
Shame is just so first of all, as you know, I'm multiracial. And so in the Jewish community, I feel like we talk about our gut and going to the washroom all the time, but we don't talk about it in the same way that my Japanese side talks about it. Like they're very obsessed with, have you eaten your fruit? Have you had a bowel movement? How was it? Did it taper? Was it wet? Like there's questions, and this is totally normal conversation. And of course you want the one that has the perfect taper, and then you don't need to even use a piece of toilet paper because it was so perfect coming out. I was like, rarely have I had those, but when I do, I mean, it's wonderful.
The exquisite joy of having a number 4 on the Bristol scale is
That's a Hanukkah miracle.
I love that you grew up with at least part of your family being so explicit about poop and your gastrointestinal health. And yeah, and I'm so sorry that you dealt with so much distress for so long, and if you're still dealing with it.
Well, I'm very thankful now of where I'm at, but I did have a look into the potential future. So my mom has colon cancer and has been now, she gets regularly checked, and isn't currently in a good situation. But my grandfather had it too, which means it definitely runs in the family. And then when I had surgery, post-surgery, a lot of people don't talk about the fact that when you do move around your organs, there's movement with the bowel when they take out your uterus, and that switches things up, and your bowel does not like to be moved at all. It's a very, very unhappy organ when it's moved. And I had 2 weeks of the most intense pain of my entire life, because I wasn't able to pass movement. And why I say, is this a glimpse into the future, is that, often hopefully we won't have this, but often there are issues when we're older of passing bowel, and it is excruciating pain, and people suffer in silence doing this. And I cannot imagine, having to deal with that more than the 2 weeks that I had.
Yeah, there's so much that can go wrong, and we're just not set up in a culture that makes it easy to deal with that, both to medically treat it, especially because things like IBS, and endometriosis primarily affect women and AFAB people, and and the medical establishment obviously doesn't have a history of really listening to that community. But also, this is unrelated, and thanks for sharing that about your family. It's so scary to see your parents going through something and wondering if it's going to happen to you too. And I've seen that with mental health in my family. There's a lot of suicide, and I have mental health problems. And all of these things, it's like you see the generational trauma sort of coming at you from a distance.
That Indiana Jones ball coming at you, and eventually will come for you. And it's
Yeah.
not just the medical system that isn't structured in a way to help you, given the fact that it's not a holistic approach, yada, yada, yada. But there's also, you're expected to work and to be able to, like, if I wasn't self-employed and was forced to become self-employed during the pandemic, I don't think I would have been able to keep any job because I was completely out. I was not only out from surgery, but I was out recovering even after surgery. And, this actually makes me think a lot, back in the day, there are people that I know in my, my parents' friendship circle, as well as in my circle, who are older than me. And I never knew that they had hysterectomy or surgery or whatnot until I shared and I was open about my journey. And then to think that, well, I knew you that whole time when you must have had surgery and you never took a break. And you've been raising children and you've been lifting them and you've been cooking and you've been doing this. It's like, like, did you just get up the next day and start like living and doing regular daily work? Like, I was in a bed for weeks.
Yep. I have no idea how, I mean, even today, I don't know how people function in this culture. I had the exact same experience where when the pandemic happened and I went remote, it was a couple months before my health really deteriorated. So I deteriorated all at home. And I had the same thought that like I wouldn't have been able to survive had I had to commute into the office and passed out on the train every day, or it was like terrifying. And there's also, I think, a lot about the modesty and secrecy in the more Orthodox and Hasidic communities too, especially with women's bodies. Like the monthly mikvah cycle is obviously tied to when you're menstruating. And if you have endometriosis and you're continuously menstruating, then that is so traumatic for you. If you're probably not going to want to tell anyone about it, you're definitely not going to want to tell your rabbi, who's going to be the one to give you, special dispensation to go to the mikveh anyway or have sex anyway. And there's just so much shame around just fear of revealing our bodies.
I just thought of this right now. Like, I lead a very secular, culturally Jewish life. So I don't think I've even done a mikvah. I've done like my own dipping into the ocean and water, but I haven't really gone. But say I was someone who was more practicing and went to do mikvah, and I continued to have the condition that I mean, I still have it and I'm going to have it for the rest of my life, but I've taken treatment and measures to reduce the effects of it. That would then mean not being able to be touched by your partner, to be essentially a leper in the community, for however long you're not bleeding for.
Yep. And I know there are lots of rabbis who have differing feelings about this. I'm sure there are rabbis who would say that, this is actually like too much of a danger to your marriage and you should be having sex and you should be touching each other anyway through this. And I'm sure there's some rabbis who say, no, you just have to stick it out. And you're sort of like gosh, you're stuck with the rabbi you've got, you know. But there are a lot of women specifically who are doing like great work around mikveh and like really talking about all of these health issues. I'm trying to remember the name. I'll send it to you later when I find it, but I know of at least one
that would be great.
community.
Well, I know we're talking about super heavy stuff, and one of the ways that I think Jews in particular do a great job of is by laughing about it. And I would love to know your journey into becoming a comedian and addressing these very personal issues.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love joking about the darker the shit, the more I want to joke about it, which is like the most Jewish impulse there is. I like it has just been so baked into me that the worse the trauma, the more I am required to make jokes about it. That is like a core part of my being. But even so, I didn't really call myself a comedian until later. I went to theater school and spent a long time being a playwright and an actor. And I've always been obsessed with the way people want to engage with really dark subjects and what makes them easier to engage with. And a big one is entertainment, which is really what called me so much to theater, was just this idea that I could help tell these stories of things that we are so afraid to talk about in a way that might help people engage. And I did a show about interfaith dialogue. I did a show about sexual violence, specifically on college campuses, and both of which were pure comedies. I mean, there was, really dark material, and I think audiences probably cried at some point in both of them, but for the majority, they were comedy. And I saw just how accessible that made these topics for people. And it wasn't until like probably 5 years ago that I just like declared, this is it, I'm being a comedian, because people don't want to talk about difficult stuff unless they're laughing. It's so hard to get someone, if there are people who are brave enough to engage with these topics anyway, and that's great. I am not the person who's going to shepherd them into these subjects. They're already there. But I'm more reaching out to the people who are really afraid to talk about something like sexual violence or disability and chronic illness. And yeah, everyone wants to listen. Everyone listens better when it's funny. I think that's just part of the human condition, is you have a better time talking about something when it's funny. That's why we like funny people. That's why we like comedians, and so I just feel so called to comedy for that reason. And there have been different seasons in my life of like what I've sort of targeted comedy at. Right now it's sort of being targeted mostly towards disability and chronic illness, and that'll keep developing as I keep developing. But that's kind of my comedy journey. And also, I also want to point out that for the longest time, I knew that I could make people laugh, but I was convinced that I wasn't funny, and I was convinced that I couldn't be a comedian because I'm a woman. And I know that's the craziest thing to say in 2022, because it's so obvious that that's not the case. But I'm so femme. I have these traits that are so unfunny in the way we think of it. Like, I'm really sensitive, and I'm yeah, I don't know how to say it other than sensitive, and I want to talk about really mushy stuff and get really deep. And all of these qualities of myself, I really thought like I'm too femme, I'm too girly to be a comedian. It was just baked in. I never consciously said it, because if I had consciously said it, I would have seen the fallacy so obviously. But it took me a really long time. And I think that there are a lot of hilarious femmes in my life who think the same thing, who think like, well, yeah, I'm funny with my femme friends. I'm funny with my girlfriends, but I'm not like funny. And so
So interesting. I also don't think I'm funny. I think I'm pretty serious a lot of the time. But every once in a while, I hit it so well. Like my comedic timing is so good that it makes up for the fact that I'm not funny for like the majority of the time. And I get the most joy out of it. Not only are people, laughing, but I get into a laughing fit and I laugh at how good it was. Like, like laugh, cry, and can't breathe, and like pee and need to like vacate the space because I can't handle it. And I'm laughing literally at my own joke because it's so good.
there's honestly probably nothing better than watching someone laugh at their own joke. I am so delighted, Carmel. We need to like become real friends so that we can really. I
This is gonna
wanna.
happen.
Yeah, I want
You
to see
have to
your
see me
inner
like,
comedian.
I think I get this from my mom. My mom also every once in a while, like she has a really good one. And we die laughing because it's so good. So good.
There's the experience of laughing at your own joke is so iconic. There's a segment of This American Life that I recommend the viewers watch, with Tig Notaro and her mother-in-law, who has pitched a joke to Tig Notaro, but literally can't get through telling this joke to Tig because she thinks it's the greatest joke she has ever come up with. And Tig is so delighted by how much she loves this joke that she takes her mother-in-law and puts her on stage in one of her shows and tells her mother-in-law to tell the audience this joke, and she can't do it. She cannot get through the joke because she's laughing at herself so hard. It's like one of my favorite like 15 minutes of radio
You
ever.
have
I
to show this
recommend
to
it
me. You have
so
to send it
highly.
to me.
I'll send it to you.
Well, my friend, we are getting towards the end of our candles. The Shamash is already done. And yeah, it's almost done. Is there anything you would like to add?
Oh my gosh, Carmel, first of all, just thank you so much for organizing this. Like, it's just it, it's so cool to be a part of this. Every time I'm in a queer Jewish space, especially because I spend the majority of my time with Chabad. Every time I'm in a queer Jewish space, it's just so exciting. And I hope that there are more people in the Orthodox and Hasidic world who can one day join us in this space. But you're doing such amazing work, and especially how you're working with creating accessible communities this year. It's really exciting. I'm just inspired by you. I'm inspired by this conversation. And I'm really, really honored to be a part of this.
Well, you're the first TikTok star that like I like not that I want to be friends with, but obviously we're gonna be friends, but that also wants to be friends with me. That's exciting.
That's it, baby. This is no longer parasocial. We are real friends.
Yeah. Okay. Next time I'm in LA, or if you're ever in Vancouver, I'm often in the Bay Area.
We're West Coasters now. I mean, I just moved here from New York. It's so exciting to be in this time zone.
You see the little wisp?
Oh my God. This is like high drama watching these candles go out.
There.
Oh my God.
using my hair as
That's
the
art.
backdrop.
Great. Really great work. This is so beautiful. Joe Malone over here is just chugging along.
I think Joe Malone is gonna be around for a while.
Ooh,
Well,
that one had a great wisp too.
without further ado, I would love to thank you, Antonia Lassar, for joining JQT today as our 5th Hanukkah Hottie. Be sure to follow her work on all the socials and website. The information is in the event description. Thank you to our sponsor organization, Creating Accessible Neighborhoods, and our community partner, LGBTQ at the J. And thank all of you for tuning in to JQT Hanukkah Hotties. Happy Hanukkah and Chag Chanukah Sameach.
Happy Hanukkah,